What is up, my friends? Lauren Sisler here with AL.com, and we have another college football playoff central show coming right at you as we get ready for Alabama to tee it up and kick off against Cincinnati in the college football playoff there at the Cotton Bowl in Dallas. And they're standing by, our good friend Joe Goodman, hanging out with us as we get a little insight into how things are going to run with the media. But first and foremost, I do want to thank our sponsors for this one, Medical Properties Trust, sponsoring all of our playoff content. We appreciate you, and we appreciate our viewers for tuning in. Before we get started, and before Joe gives us the grandiose tour of the media center there, the media room in Dallas, I do want to say, y'all that are watching, ask us your Cotton Bowl questions. Jump in, ask us your questions, throw in some comments. We want to get y'all involved in this, have a little fun with it. Okay, Joe, so you've covered many of these, national championship games, college football playoff games, and let me just tell you, they do it right. And I will be honest with you. A lot of people have said, and I do have a point for comparison, as you do, the Cotton Bowl knows how to really throw out the hospitality. That media room, from what I remember from several years ago, was one of my favorites. They did it right. And based on the background and what you showed us before we teed this thing up, they haven't slighted y'all one bit this year. So take the viewers into a little behind the scenes peek at what the media room looks like. Because remember, you guys are putting in the long hours, the long days. You deserve to have some fun too.
Yeah, I don't know how hard my job is, as Nick Saban would say, relative to other people. But
not true.
yeah.
Not true. Not when you're up to 3 a.m. and you're writing stuff 24/7 on the job. But
the media room is like actually a huge banquet hall, and it's kind of has the feel of college football meets arcade. They have this entire like life-size game of Space Invaders. I was teaching people how to play ping pong last night. The bar, I think, is open all the time. So definitely there's a bunch of reporters in here just getting sauced like at all hours of the day. Like as you would imagine that would happen. These cool holograms. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun here, even though we're, amid this Omicron variant outbreak that is kind of changing the Cotton Bowl and the bowl season as we speak. The Cotton Bowl committee, they do a really good job with the Cotton Bowl Classic. And I think not last year, with everything being scaled way back, I kind of have the sense that they wanted to go a little like a step beyond this year. So they always do a great job here in Dallas. And last year they did like a masterful job of hosting the Rose Bowl on the fly for the semifinal. And I don't think people really appreciated how difficult that was, but the Cotton Bowl committee really helped the Rose Bowl out. And Alabama, made memorable history because of it. And thanks to that venue that the Cotton Bowl committee provided. So it's a little different here. We're doing all the Zoom stuff with the players, but year two of this pandemic, we're kind of used to that.
Yeah, things have certainly changed, and we'll kind of get into some of the comments from Slade Bolden, wide receiver Slade Bolden, and defensive lineman DJ Dale, who spoke with us earlier. A couple quick questions off the top I do want to answer before we dive into some of the X's and O's and some of the content for the day. One of those questions is, what is the spread for this game? I believe it opened at 13.5 was Alabama favored. I think it might be at 14 right now. Is that correct? I think we're somewhere around that line as of now. So 2-score favorite for Alabama, setting the line for that one coming in. And then another question, how much are tickets for this game? And I was looking when obviously the lineup was set and the playoff was kicking off. I think tickets were maybe as low as $250 at resale value. I want to say of over 1,000 for some of those seating, I guess, seats or whatever, tickets, however you want to call it. I don't know. Have you seen any updates on that? I know Patrick was going to try to get us an update. So $75 right now is the cheapest on SeatGeek that you can get. So
I think all the fans are going to start getting here today and tomorrow. I haven't seen a ton of fans yet. So I would say you might be able to get a pretty good ticket to this semifinal if you want to on the fly, drive out here to Dallas. Flights are crazy expensive out of Alabama. I know that a lot of Alabama fans have been complaining about that. I know I have. But that's just the state of the world right now. The Cincinnati contingent is going to be pretty strong here. So the SEC championship game kind of felt like a home game for Georgia because it was like 80-20 Georgia fans. And I kind of get the sense that there's going to be a lot of Cincinnati fans here too, with Alabama kind of expecting to roll into Indianapolis. So yeah, that always provides a different element to these games.
Yeah, because I would imagine that as you mentioned there, that Alabama fans, if they're going to pick and choose which one they want to go to, Indianapolis, a little bit of a different venue, something unique and different than maybe Dallas, which they've been to many a times at the beginning of the season, end of the season, and so perhaps people that are weighing out their options would go in that direction. So yeah, I do think it's going to be interesting to see what the fan base brings. Now, kind of going off of that, and we'll get to some more of the questions, the Q&A here in just a moment, but just wanted to get some takeaways from today's press conferences. As I mentioned, DJ Dale speaking to the media, defensive lineman DJ Dale, as well as Slade Bolden on the offensive side of the football. What was maybe a key takeaway or two that you gathered from that? And let's keep in mind, y'all, these press conferences, they are being done via Zoom, and really you're not getting a lot of new content. Perhaps the newest thing you'll get will be from the coordinators, which is something we'll get into about Bill O'Brien here in a minute, but kind of a unique and different situation with how this is handled with it being via Zoom. But you don't always get a ton of good stuff, good content, anything that's real headline worthy. But was there something from today that kind of stood out to you about what either of those guys said?
Yes, man. I really love DJ Dale. I always have. He's a kid from Birmingham, and he just is so humble and gets it. And he really provided a perspective today that I appreciated, and I think a lot of people needed to hear. And that was that he's just really grateful to be here.
Mm-hmm.
He was just absolutely grateful for this opportunity. And Alabama has been here 5 of the last 6 years in the national championship game, playing for one. So it kind of becomes like this habitual, traditional thing that everyone expects to happen. But, hearing DJ Dale say that and kind of put it in the perspective that, this is still really cool for these kids. And it's not just like this perfunctory semifinal round that everyone just expects Alabama to be in every year. They're not taking anything for granted.
Yeah, can't take anything for granted. And then for Slade Bolden, I think one thing that we were talking about prior to jumping on this, and one thing that, definitely kind of stands out are his comments about, I guess the doubters and people saying you won't fit in at Alabama, you're never going to get to play, you're never going to get your turn. And, now he's one of the veteran guys on the team leading the way, and that's kind of how media's days was sort of handled, with some of the veteran guys getting the opportunity to take the mic stand and talk to the media. So what were your thoughts kind of on his comments about this opportunity for him being able to play after a lot of the doubt that used to come in for him?
Yeah, one of my favorite things about covering sports as a journalist is how the people who participate in these games, their lives really reflect the human condition for other people. So, Slade Bolden is the perfect archetypal of example of a guy who believed in himself, okay? And that's such a powerful message that people can take away from that. Slade Bolden, he had all these doubters, yeah. No one told him, they said, don't go to Alabama, okay? You go to Alabama, you'll never play. All right, now you're at Alabama. Well, they got all these wide receivers ahead of you. You're never going to start. But, he just believed in himself, and he was patient, and he kept his eyes on what he wanted to do and the focus that he wanted to succeed in. And, I mean, the same thing with Mac Jones, and a lot of these kids at Alabama. So I think that was really, really interesting to hear Slade talk about, yeah, we're in these little Zoom boxes and everything, but a lot of these kids don't get opportunities to speak publicly about, their lives and what this means to them. So even these little opportunities are really great to hear kids like Slade talk about what they've achieved.
Yeah, no doubt. And again, I think with the way the media is kind of handled at Alabama and really, across the board, in covering multiple teams in different conferences. But Alabama, I think a lot of people kind of look at them as like machines, robots. They just go out there, they pump out wins day in and day out, and you don't necessarily get to know these guys on a different level. And that's the one thing that I've done some media training with Alabama, and we've talked to them about humanizing yourself. You are human, you have a story, and help us as media members, help us as viewers fall in love with your story, because your story matters. And I think that's so important. So I love that part of it. Couple things here. I did want to get into injuries. If you, I guess, let me see. I'm going to make sure I have the right comment here. So the injuries, some questions about who is injured, who's coming back. And I think Matt Fox had asked this, who all is coming back from injuries playing in this game. And I think one of the significant ones that we learned about this week was that we would get Jalyn Armour-Davis. He would be back playing. I think that's a significant one. The redshirt junior from Mobile, he's expected to be one of the top cornerbacks. And then you'll have freshman Kool-Aid McKinstry there on the other side. I guess, is there anybody else that stands out to you that's expected to be back at this point? I don't think Josh Jobe is going to be available for this game, which is obviously a loss for them. But I think getting Jalyn Armour-Davis will certainly be beneficial.
Yeah, that's going to help shore up the secondary. The great thing about the time between the SEC championship game and the semifinal is there's so much time for players to heal up. So it gives a chance for everybody to, get right health-wise and, go into this game as healthy as possible. It kind of stinks that Meach isn't playing, but, Alabama, that just gives Alabama's young receivers a chance to step up and shine like we saw in the SEC championship game.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so another one I wanted to get to, and then we'll kind of dive in a little bit more to the Cincinnati side of things, and I guess more of the matchup. Joe, do you know what exactly a Bearcat is?
I love this question, Mark. I love you, man. Thanks so much. Yeah.
Good.
So, I wrote a column like 2 weeks ago or whatever, just like what the heck is a Bearcat, and I went and I looked it up, and so to begin with, it's an imaginary creature, okay? A Bearcat.
Yeah, someone said here it's a fairy tale creature, right?
Yeah, right. So, but there's a better story as it pertains to Cincinnati. Cincinnati's one of the oldest football teams in America. Like, they were one of the first universities to ever play. And so they had a dude, I think, named John Bear, like back in the day or something. And they were playing a game, and the cheerleaders, for Cincinnati started to refer to the team as the Bearcats after this guy named Bear. And so that is how that nickname came to be for Cincinnati. It was after one of their players.
I mean, I got to be honest with you, until you shared that story, it never was on me to like, ooh, what is a Bearcat? Like, to me, it sounds like a real thing, right? Like, you think of like a mountain lion. Like, I just kind of throw them all into the same, something Bearcat you would see out in the mountains of like Montana somewhere, right? So that's always my thought process. So I'm glad you served us up some facts, Joe Goodman, because it's important that we understand that a Bearcat.
I want to see a Bearcat on the next episode of Yellowstone.
Yes, I know. I love that show. Oh my gosh. I know. Sunday, new episode, season finale. Oh, snap, dog. That's pretty good. Okay, so let's see. As we transition, let me see. I think Patrick, our producer here, I know we're kind of going off the rails here, trying not to keep up with these. So about COVID, you were asking a question there. David Ferguson said, I think elephants actually eat bear cats. Good one. That's good, David. That's good for Alabama fans. So, Jim Clark, are the players sequestered prior to the game to reduce contact with COVID or variant? That's a question that came up. Yeah, Joe, you're obviously on the ground there, boots on the ground. You kind of have a good understanding of how things are operating there. I know that the two coordinators had COVID. They were able to travel most recently based on the new CDC guidelines of quarantine times. How are things being mitigated there? What can you tell us about how things are being handled in terms of mitigating some of the COVID surge that we're seeing, and how players obviously are being protected, and the coaching staffs and the programs, besides the Zoom calls that we're doing for media?
Well, they're definitely keeping the kids away from the reporters, which is great. Yeah, they canceled the media viewing a couple of days ago,
right?
But
which is always my favorite time, because you get to like go in this huge arena and just like, it's like a free for all. It's like a shopping spree with all these players. You get to go around and ask them all these questions. So it's kind of fun, but obviously I understand why they canceled that one.
Yeah. So they're staying in the hotel. They got a bunch of games in there for everybody. So that's how they're staying busy. And I mean, this is really like a business trip for these kids and the coaches. So they're in meeting rooms in the hotel, and big breakout sessions, going over individual, position specific things, preparing for Cincinnati and vice versa. So I guess it just gives them a little extra opportunity to focus on the challenge at hand. I've talked to some of the parents of players, so they are having parents got to go see practices and stuff. So, they've had a little better access than everyone else. And, their kind of biggest message is that, Alabama's locked in, and Saban and the staff and the training staff have just done yet again an amazing job of keeping everyone healthy. And I think that's like one of the biggest. We haven't talked about it much because everyone's like sick of talking about COVID or whatever, but like you really can't ignore that fact that Saban's done such a great job for 2 years in a row mitigating the spread of COVID throughout his team, especially when like the offensive coordinator and the offensive line coach, both come down with Omicron variant, and it doesn't spread. And so, that's a huge accomplishment in and of itself, that even though they had like this small outbreak among, two of the coaches, like it didn't spread throughout the team. So yeah, it's definitely this ever-present thing that's, even though we're not talking about it as often now, it's definitely still there.
Yeah, no doubt. And I will say, in covering last year, in talking to the coaches, I think the one big thing, there's no manual or blueprint for how we handle this, right? Obviously, even Nick Saban, who really has the manual for how to be a college football coach, how to run a program, didn't even know how to handle this situation. But things have evolved. I think it's been a learning process. It's been a learning curve for everyone. And I think that even though this thing is here and present, I do think that, through experience, programs and obviously medical staffs certainly want to shout out them as well, being able to, kind of keep things under control and do the best that they can to continue playing, to continue, on this journey, but also keeping the players and obviously the staff safe in the process. Okay, last one for me before we jump off here. I do want to ask you, Joe, some comments yesterday, and I know we talked about it a little bit, but talking about Bill O'Brien, and, he obviously comes in his first year as the offensive coordinator, and was asked what one of his biggest challenges was of becoming an offensive coordinator at Alabama. And, the first thing that jumps out at me after he got fired from the Texans, he admitted, he said, Nick Saban was the only one that I got a call from. He was the only one that picked up the phone and called me and said, hey, let's talk. And, he discussed openly what some of his biggest challenges were coming to Alabama. And I'm just kind of interested in getting your perspective and take on that, based on some of the comments he shared with the media yesterday in that press conference.
Well, my biggest takeaway, just getting to know Bill O'Brien in his first year at Alabama, is that his calm demeanor is really like a reflection of the way Bryce has performed and the way he carries himself, you know, they really have like this symbiotic relationship, I feel like, because Bill O'Brien, I mean, he's accomplished a lot throughout his career, but to hear him talk, like, he's just such a humble guy. And that really is the first thing that strikes you when you hear him speak, and the stories that he tells. I mean, this is a guy who's now coached in the NFL, but then he's also been with Bill Belichick and Saban, and only a handful of guys have ever done that, you know. So, yeah, maybe it was the only phone call that he got, but Saban obviously knew the type of coach I think that he needed to have close to Bryce Young after Sark, went to Texas and Mac Jones left. And it's like the perfect fit between these two people, Bill O'Brien and Bryce Young. So, I think that's like my biggest takeaway on Bill O'Brien. And as far as like learning the offense, this guy's a veteran coach. I don't know how much he really actually had to specifically learn, but it was great to hear him talk about how like Mac Jones, kind of taught him the ins and outs of the offense while Mac was preparing for the NFL, and then how Bryce Young also helped him because Bryce was so well versed in it, and Bryce had learned it from Mac Jones as well.
From Mac Jones and Sarkisian.
I mean, Mac and Bryce spent so much time together last year during the pandemic, and that's another angle that I guess maybe people don't appreciate, but when they were all sequestered together, all they did was like practice, talk about football, and so the fingerprints of that experience with Mac Jones and Bryce Young being together are still at play, this season.
Absolutely. I think that's a great point, and certainly, kind of transcends obviously from one generation to another if we're talking year over year, right? And passing the torch on. So love that. And kind of lastly, a couple comments to wrap this thing up. Dave Ferguson has so kindly jumped in a couple times and talking about some things. One thing he did ask, any word on the swag for this bowl game? And he's right, because they used to make a big deal about what the teams got. And I think a lot of that just kind of had to do with, you go to a bowl game and that was like the cool part. Like, oh, you get the not the Game Boys, because I'm dating myself, right? The old school
Game Boys.
The Game Boy, right? What is the handheld? The
Switch.
The Switch, but what was the one, the PlayStation handheld before that? There was a PlayStation one. I don't know. Anyways, long story short is, dude, a Switch would be awesome. Like, that would be such a great bowl swag. But yeah, no word on that, but we'll see. We'll have to find out if we can find that out and maybe compare some of the bowl swag that's been given out in years past. So maybe
I can't say that the media gift this year was very nice from the Cotton Bowl. It is a gray like Cotton Bowl quarter zip, very tasteful.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, I love the swag. I've got a whole closet full of it, and I always reach in there and find myself wearing it time and time again. So, hey, PSP, that's it, Mark. Thank you. PSP. Why could I not think of that? PSP. I was thinking like PS2, PS3, PSP. What's up? Okay. So good stuff there. And one last thing I did want to mention was where'd it go? I don't know if I can find it. Oh, Micah there. What Michael Wayne Wilson did say, every time we've gotten a Heisman, we've won the Natty. So, if you're a predicting person, you're a betting man, betting woman out there.
It's written in the stars.
Yeah, I love it. Okay,
no Heisman curse. No Heisman curse at Alabama, Micah.
Yeah, no curse. All right. I love it. Joe, thank you so much for your insight. Thanks for joining us. I know Laura Goldman sent us a picture of your backside, so take a look at it.
I got a big donk. What can I say?
No, not that. Backside. Not bottom backside. While you were doing this video. Anyways, y'all have fun. Go play some games for me. I see some of those fun things over there. And we thank all of you guys for tuning in. Thanks for bringing your questions. We'll have more of these throughout the week leading up to the game. So please, please, please jump on, weigh in. It's been fun. And we thank you for watching. And we thank our sponsor, Medical Properties Trust, sponsoring all of our playoff content, because Medical Properties Trust is at the heart